You can go ahead and start. I'm going Facebook Live.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Dan Bates, President and CEO of Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. We are thrilled you could join us today. Because we have a larger group today, we are going to forego self-introductions, but we're going to ask each one of you to introduce yourself in the chat box. So everybody can see who's on, and that way, if they want to reach out to you or whatever, they will know how. So very quickly, name, company, business, and email would be great. So we are, on Zoom, obviously. We have a great guest speaker today, and you can ask questions of the speaker directly if you're on Zoom. We are also on Facebook Live. So if you're on Facebook Live, type your questions in. Tiffany will repeat those to Dale so he can answer your questions. So let me go ahead and introduce Dale, and then we're going to come back and get started. So Dale Gibbons and I this is the power of networking. We actually met on LinkedIn, I believe, just a little over a year ago. And Dale has quickly became a very valued member of the chamber. He's a very successful entrepreneur, being successful in multiple businesses, and he's learned a lot over the years and willing to share that with others. So we did a seminar here last week that people walked away wanting more and more. So hopefully the same will happen today. Dale got involved with us, and his first activity with us was State of the City last year. And he joined the chamber and quickly became one of our top sponsors. So Dale is with your seven-figure business coach, and he has a lot of valuable information to share. So coming to us from Indiana on the Kentucky border. So living on his farm in Indiana. So with that being said, since we're going to forego self-introductions, I'm going to turn it directly over to Dale to get started. Good morning, Dale.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Maybe one of the largest gatherings of introverts in the tri-state area this morning. Possibly, right? This meeting's being live streamed. Okay, I got to hit that button, I guess. Okay, good. Well, let's dive right in. We have a lot to do here in the short time that we have together. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to work under the assumption this truly is coffee and conversation. So although I've already had my coffee totally ready for conversation, I'll be sharing some very specific things with all of you. We're going to go back and touch on some of the information that I covered during the morning seminar that I did on October 5th there at your Hamilton Chamber office, the one that's not in Paris. So let me share my screen here, and we'll just dig right in. All right, networking for introverts. Dan asked me to do this on my drive back on October 5th, and I jumped on that right away. I said, absolutely, I'd love this topic because by wiring, I'm an introvert. I'm certainly not an extrovert. My wife is an extrovert. She's the one who has that, I'll say, Labrador Retriever personality, not me. However, I've come to learn that introverts make the best networkers of all, and I'm going to go through some of that with you. But this is part of a 5-part series, really, that sort of came through the October 5th session that we did, and I learned a lot from the audience and what the audience and your members are looking for. And so it became fairly obvious this is a 5-part series, and so we'd consider October 5th the first of the 5-part series. Now you have the opportunity to participate in all of those that are coming up here really soon. So the second one's going to be on October 19th, by the way. So by all means, get with Tiffany and whatever your registration process is there. Laura, I'm sure, can help to register for the 19th. That one's going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. That's one where we're going to be actually talking about how to have meaningful conversations that turn into new customers. So the 5-part profit framework, this is where the 5-part series comes from. If you want to grow your profits in your business, which, by the way, important. Some people say, hey, I want to have $1 million business, or I want to have a business with 50 employees or 100 employees or whatever. It's not really the right way to look at it. It depends on what your goals are, but if you want to have the simplest business that is the most profitable and profitably serves a number of customers that helps you live the way you want to live, then the 5-part profit framework is a great way to look at it. So more leads, more conversions, more transactions, higher prices, and more profits. Those are the 5 parts. That's the 5 parts of the series. On October 5th, we covered 3 strategies that fit in more leads here at the top, okay? We covered 3 very specific strategies here. We're going to share as a bonus a 4th one today that fits into more leads also. And that is networking, specifically networking for introverts, extroverts. If there are any of those here, you can learn a lot by listening very carefully to what I'm about to share and what we're about to talk about and what makes introverts the better networkers. So why introverts make better networkers? Number 1, they're selective about who they talk to. They don't feel like they need to meet everyone in the room. They certainly don't feel like they need to be the life of the party. Number 2, they choose their words very, very carefully. They know the meaning. They know that what they're going to say has impact, and they tend to be very careful about how they say it. And so as a result of that, when they do say it, they tend to get right to the point. And word efficiency is something that introverts value very much. Number 4, they give ample time for other people to talk and to share. And so as they do that, introverts generally are better listeners than extroverts are, because extroverts spend a high proportion of their time thinking about what they're going to say next. It's almost like an extreme example would be Bette Midler's line, you know, enough about me, let me tell you about my kids. So introverts really do a very good job here of giving others ample time and listening. And then 5th, introverts tend to be very thorough and process oriented, and so they want to know what is the best next step. And that means they tend to be very good follow-up, and they tend to follow up with intent and purpose and meaning. All right, you're gonna notice that we're gonna actually touch on some of these in the secrets to networking coming up. By the way, these 5 are inspired in large part by an article I read some time ago in Inc. magazine, and I kind of went back and dug that up. And so I've refined these a little bit based on my own experience, but this is not just the world according to Dale. This is more the world according to Dale here when it comes to secrets to networking success. Number 1, guys, and this may be the most important thing that I can share with you today, and I'm going to give you some examples of exactly how to do this. Generally, when you're an introvert, you're nervous in the room. I can be the wallflower as good as anybody on this call this morning. I can almost assure you that. It is not my comfort zone to work the room. However, you wouldn't know that if we were at a networking event together. And I'll tell you my secret here in a minute. I would much rather be talking one to many, one to any number. The bigger the number, the better, frankly. I like to speak to large crowds. But working my way through a crowd and having one-on-one conversations is much more challenging for me. So when you're nervous, be of service. I'll share with you exactly what I mean here in a bit. Number 2, you don't need to talk to everyone. Thank goodness. It is not necessary to do that. Again, I'll share some examples. Number 3, ask very good questions. Let me give you an example of a couple of good questions that you can write down, okay? If I were talking to your ideal customer, what would they be saying that would tell me I need to introduce them to you? We're going to use that in a bit. If I were talking to your ideal customer, Dan, Vanessa, Tiffany, if I were talking to your ideal customer, use their name, by the way, because that helps you remember it, and it certainly helps to build rapport and connection with this person. It's good to meet you, Dan. I'm just curious, if I were talking to your ideal customer, what would they be saying that would tell me and demonstrate to me that I really need to introduce them to you? you are going to be, they will be eating out of your hands when you ask that question, generally speaking, okay? You can ask other questions too, like, hey, tell me what inspired you to get into that line of work. Now, that can go off in all kinds of rabbit trails and things like that, but if you got time, ask that question. You might have to rein that in a little bit after a while, and then ask the other question. So start with, hey, I'm just curious, what inspired you to get into that business, into the business that you're in? The most common question asked at networking meetings. So what do you do, Laura? Just curious, what do you do? We're going to talk in a second about exactly how to answer that question so that you get a good response from your ideal customer. All right, so ask good questions, number 3. Number 4, have a compelling message to share. Have something compelling and meaningful to share. It's okay if whatever you're sharing, as far as your message goes, it's okay if it's not something that they're interested in or want or need, but it's not okay if they don't understand it. So have something compelling and clear to share. Number 5, be genuinely interested. Years ago, when I was in the corporate world, one of my coworkers told me, who was quite the ladder climber, I was not that kind of person at all. So that's one of the reasons that I'm not in the corporate world today. But one of the things he told me, he said, Dale, listen, if my boss is interested, I'm fascinated. Okay. I never forgot that. And, you know, he did quite well in corporate life, and he did well in his professional life in general. But one of the reasons was because when people he might be talking to was interested in a topic, he became just as interested in it. He became very fascinated by it, genuinely so. And then number 6 is make sure you follow up with purpose and intent. If you're at a networking meeting, you should not wait more than 48 hours to follow up with somebody, and do so by living up to any expectation that you might have set. Okay. And here's what I'm going to say, one very quick and important thing about follow-up. If you think about doing business out in the marketplace, what we all really want is a handful of things, and I'll go through these more on October 19th. Do come to October 19th. You'll get so much out of that, and all this will kind of connect together for you. But one of the things that we want with people in our inner circle is we want people that we can trust and we can believe in, that we know when they say they're going to do something, that thing is going to happen. Okay. The number one reason for problems between human beings, whether it's business and customer or any two people, husband and wife, partners, you know, it's unrealized expectations. Someone had an expectation that was not realized. Now, sometimes it's a little unfair because that other person can create expectations in their imagination. But if we set an expectation, we need to do it carefully, and we need to follow up and make it happen. So if you say, Dan, I'm as glad to meet you, I'll follow up with you, and be careful what you say next, because if you say tomorrow, make it happen tomorrow. If you say before the week's out, that's a little easier, and then you can make it happen tomorrow. But if it's the following day, it's okay because you said before the week's out and it was Tuesday. Okay. So follow up with purpose and intent, and whatever expectation you set, make absolutely sure you live up to it, because that begins the trust building process. You just made a deposit in this sort of emotional trust account with this individual. All right, so next we're going to transition into having a compelling message to share, and we'll revisit some of the things that I shared and I talked about on October 5th. That would have been a week ago today. As far as the 3 strategies that we covered there. So one of the 3 strategies was compelling messaging. It's having something compelling and interesting and impactful to say. So you might have experienced this question like a billion times by now in your life. You've probably heard this, you know, oh, so Vanessa, tell me, what do you do? Or Kimberly, tell me, I'm just curious, what do you do? Well, what is really important to remember here is that there are a couple of forces at work. There's our thinking brain at work, and then there's our subconscious mind at work, okay? And what people subconsciously really want to know when they ask this question is not typically what people share with them. So most people will say, well, I own a boutique on the corner of 5th and Main, and we sell clothes for newborns. Well, that isn't what they asked. They didn't ask what kind of business you have. That might be a question. In that case, answer it. But they ask, what do you do? So when we ask that question, or when someone asks that question, they really want to know 4 things. They want to know what can you do for me? They want to know, what do I have to do? They want to know, how long will it take to get the result? And they want to know, how much does it cost me in time and money? Okay. Now, when you work to put messaging together, and the messaging is, in this example, an answer to the question, so tell me, what do you do? Now you can get around to the part of, well, I own a children's boutique on the corner of 5th and Main. You're going to get to that. But the first thing you're going to do is you're going to answer these 4 questions in a very succinct, very tight statement, not a paragraph, a statement. I'll give you some specific examples here in a minute. So you have to enter the conversations that are taking place in the mind of your prospects. Another way to look at this, by the way, is address the number 1 question they have. Remember, the conversation going on is this. And we talked about this on October 5th. We'll cover it a little more in more detail on the 19th. There's a problem they have that they don't want. In other words, there's something that's uncomfortable that they're trying to move away from. Or there's a result they want, but they don't have. In other words, there's something that is a more positive emotional state that they're working toward. And we'll, again, I'll share some more deeper details into that on the 19th as we build on what we did on the 5th. Okay, but if you didn't come to the 5th, don't worry about it. Come on the 19th. You're going to be fine. You're going to take away a lot of things that are going to be valuable to you and very helpful that you can put away, that you can put to work right away. Again, how to have a conversation that turns into a customer. Okay. All right. Here's what your answer should look like. I help blank to blank without blank. Let me fill in the blanks for you. Number 1 is your ideal customer or client. I help busy professionals. I help new moms. I help folks looking for a new home. You get the idea. Number 2 is what you do for them. Very specifically what you do for them. Now, when we say what you do for them, it has to be packaged in a way that for them, it's obvious it moves them away from their pain and toward their higher emotional state, toward their pleasure or their happiness and joy that they're looking for, okay? Their higher emotion they're wanting to achieve. And number 3 is the pain, generally speaking, the pain they want to avoid while getting it. All right? Now, what we did on the 5th was we remodeled some of these answers for a couple people in the room, and it was a lot of fun. And I think they enjoyed it, and I think they were really eager to get out there and give them a try. All right. Okay. Here's some examples. Let's say we're at a networking meeting and someone says, so Bob, tell me, what do you do? Well, I'm an engineer at Acme Corporation. Pretty normal. That's a very normal answer. Again, it doesn't answer the question. If they had said, so what is your job title and where do you work? That would have been the right answer. But what if we re-engineered that and it says, well, hey, I design high-tech fuel systems for cars so they burn less gas, which means car owners like you save thousands of dollars each year and help heal the planet. Okay, you get the idea? Here's another example. Well, my husband and I own a landscaping company. This is one of my clients, by the way, up in Indiana, northern Indiana. My husband and I own a landscaping company. That's what she told me the first time we met when I asked her this question, because I always ask this question. Her new answer, we create beautiful landscaping for busy professionals that makes their home the envy of their neighborhood so they can avoid the heat and spend time doing what they love. Her ideal customer, busy professionals in a relatively affluent neighborhoods in the area where she lives. All right, here's another one. I'm an insurance broker. Boy, insurance is one of the most competitive businesses ever. Insurance and financial planning and banking and things like that. It's interesting to me because I pay attention to what people in all industries tell me when we're networking and I'm asking these questions. One thing I notice about insurance and banking and financial services, differentiation is mighty difficult, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. What if it becomes, well, I help the people of, let's say, Hamilton sleep well, knowing that their family, their home, and their cars are totally protected from natural disasters and accidents. You could work on this and make this even more compelling. You could put a without in here. Remember, without the pain they want to avoid. Okay, we're at 9:25 and I want to leave plenty of room for questions and answers. What I want to do next, though, before we go into the secrets to networking success and sort of revisiting those, because I want to leave plenty of room for Q&A, as I said, I want to share with you guys a tool that I shared on the 5th, and I'm looking up because I have my monitors over here. Now, one of the things that you all have available to you is the Hamilton, Ohio e-learning site. Now, this is a site that we created just for you guys, and as members, if you're a member, you have access to this total and unfettered at no cost, okay? Now, if you go to hamilton-ohio-elearning.com, just put in a / and put in new profit, okay? Just like that, hit enter. There's the 5-part profit framework. So what I would encourage you to do is begin to build your, I'll say, compelling scoreboard. But for now, just make an estimate of how many leads you have coming into your business every year, how many of those turn into new customers, how many times they buy from you every year, what the average price is, and what your net profit margin is. And that should turn into about how much net profit you generate in a year. Now, if you increased all 5 of these by just 10%, now your $200,000 turns into $322,000. If you increased all 5 of those areas by 50%, your $200,000 now becomes $1.5 million. So you can see these 5 numbers matter. They matter a lot in terms of profitability and actual dollars that your business, and this is a measure of the value you're creating in the marketplace. It's how much and how well you serve others and solve problems for them, okay? And so you can see that it matters and it makes sense to keep track of these numbers. So everything that we've covered today fits into, for the most part, more leads. And that's one of many, many strategies to make this number increase from where it is now to a 10% or a 50% or anywhere for that matter, any increase, but there's an idea of what's possible. So more leads. Again, on October 19th, we're going to be working on more conversions, which is how to have conversations to turn those leads into new customers. Now, inside of the e-learning site here, I've already gained access to it, but there's also how to network your business to success right inside Greater Hamilton's e-learning content here. Okay, now what I just shared with you is specific to me and what I do, but there's more information right in there for you inside the e-learning portal. Okay, so if you want access to that, I'll tell you how to get that here in just a moment, and then we're going to go into questions and answers and get into the conversation part of this, hopefully. So again, secrets to networking success here, guys. Make this fun. First and foremost, when you're nervous, be of service. Again, let me give you a very good example here. When you walk in, here's what I do. When I know I'm going to a networking event, and I'm being honest, it is my least favorite thing to do in business. I would much rather be doing a seminar like we did on the 5th or the 19th. I get tremendous energy from that. It is a weird thing. I understand. I don't understand it myself and why it works, but I do understand that it's odd. So what I do when I'm going to a networking event is I change my mindset. I think Tony Robbins had it right. Business is 10% math and 90% psychology. And so what I do is I change my mindset, and I put myself in the place where, number one, I'm in more of a positive state. So I'll listen to a playlist that I like, that I have collected over a bit of time. And then the other is I walk into this place with the mindset that I am an ambassador and a co-host of the event. Okay. And so it's not uncommon for me. What I do is I scope out where everything is. I find out where the bathrooms are. I find out where the food and beverages are. Everything that if I was the host of the event, I would want people to know about it. Okay. So in my mind, there's two things that are the highest priority. Number one, that people are comfortable and they know where everything is. And number two, that they're meeting the people they want to meet. Okay. So my second objective is when I'm talking to people, I want to introduce them. I want to see if I can introduce them to someone else. Okay. And so that's my goal. I sort of gamify it. So one of my goals is to introduce and connect at least two people at this networking event. Now, when I walk into the room, again, I scope out all of the, facilities, so I know how to let people know that information. And I'll ask them that. If they don't have a drink or food, I'll ask them, if they're hungry and if I can get them something or something like that. They usually say, oh, no, well, help yourself. The drinks are right over there. The food's over there. Just because you're not the host of the event doesn't mean you can't be a co-host or be an ambassador. I'm sure the chamber would love that. Okay. The second thing I do is I always ask that question. So I'm just curious. It looks like you're Bob with Acme Corporation. Tell me, Bob, if I were talking to your ideal customer, what would they be saying to me that would tell me I need to introduce this person to Bob? They love that because they probably don't like networking either. And now they have the opportunity to talk about themselves, which is the easiest thing for any of us to do. And so I will generally thank them for that information. And I'll tell them, I'll ask them, Bob, if I meet someone like that, would it be okay with you, or even close for that matter, or someone I think might be able to introduce you to that person? Is it okay if I bring them to you and make the introduction here today? I've never had anybody say no to that. That just hasn't happened. So when I go to the next person, same thing. I don't think I've been to a networking meeting in recent memory where I haven't been able to say, hey, you know what? I just met Bob. And Bob was telling me this and Bob was telling me that. And I don't know this for sure. I just met you and I just met Bob, but there could be some value in the two of you meeting. Would it be okay if I introduce you to Bob? He's standing over there right now with a soda in his hand. Yeah, sure. That'd be great. Then you walk over. Hey, Bob, I was just talking to Laura, and Laura was telling me this, and it seemed to me that you guys might benefit from meeting. I mean, after all, we're at a networking meeting, right? And you kind of chuckle and everything. Laura, meet Bob. Bob, meet Laura. And then I'll say, I'll let you two take it from here. It's great to meet you both. I'm glad you're in my network. I usually will say that too, because I want them to know they are in my network now. Okay. I probably have their business card. And I probably am going to follow up with them, even if it's just an email to say, I'm glad we met and I hope that you enjoyed getting to know Bob. Okay. Now, when you're nervous, be of service. That's an example of how to be of service. Again, you don't need to talk to everyone. Take a few minutes and figure out who the gregarious Labradors are. And you might hang around kind of a little bit to see what they're talking about, but more importantly, who's listening to them, and figure out who it is you want to have a chat with and go up and introduce yourself. Number 3, ask good questions. We covered that. Number 4, have a compelling message to share. I shared with you some strategies or for some method for how to do that. Number 5, be genuinely interested. Not interesting, that's helpful too, but interested. If you're genuinely interested, you become very interesting to that person. What they will say when you leave is, there's something about that Vanessa. I mean, she's just a great person. Well, all it is because Vanessa just listened really, really well and asked 2 or 3 really good and compelling questions that were focused on them. Okay. And number 6, follow up. All right. So the 5-part profit framework, that's part of our 5-part series. Again, we're meeting on the 19th, a week from today. Can't wait. I always enjoy it and looking forward to it. Today is a bonus strategy number 4, which is networking, specifically for introverts like us. That's what I have to share with you today. So if it's okay with you guys, let's start the conversation part of this. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. We can cover anything you would like to cover, okay? Tiffany, Laura, is it okay if I turn it back to you, and then you can kind of help out with facilitating questions and things like that? The more questions, the richer the conversation becomes.
Yep. So at this time, you guys can feel free to unmute and ask questions. And I know Dan always has something he's gonna ask. So if you want to start, Dan, kind of break the ice.
Well, I think it'd be great. We might pick on somebody to have them kind of reframe what they do, because I think that was very beneficial, what we did last week. But I also want to kind of give a plug for the chamber. One of the things to use us when you come to one of our events that ties in with what Dale is saying is, never hesitate to walk in a room, because that's why we want to know all your businesses very well. Never hesitate when you walk in a room to grab one of us and say, who is here in the room that I need to meet? So, because if there's 70 people in the room, we may know 2 or 3 people you definitely have to talk to before you leave that event. So make sure you utilize the chamber staff for that. So Lisa, if you're still on, we're going to pick on Lisa. Lisa's not shy. So why don't you answer the question, Lisa, of what you do, and have Dale kind of walk you through how that could be reframed.
Okay, well, I teach people how to take ownership of their life, health, and their wealth. I do that through education, design, and financial services. It's kind of my tagline.
That's your tagline?
Yeah.
Okay, can you give it to me one more time? I teach people.
Another way to rephrase that I was thinking about, but I teach people how to take ownership of their life, their health, and their wealth through education, design, and financial services.
Okay. All right. Lisa, can I help you with this? Do you have thick skin?
Absolutely.
Okay. When you say I teach people how to take ownership of this, that, and the other thing, what you're really communicating is they don't have ownership of it now, which is basically saying you're an irresponsible person. Okay. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you say buy these other things, none of those things elicit any sort of emotion generally in that other person. And so here's what I mean by that. What we want to do is we want to get right to the point of what it is that is hurting for this person right now. So if you think of your ideal customer, what is it that is painful for them in their life at the moment? Give me some examples of that.
So because I'm so complicated, I have clients that are special. I'm an architect, and I'm also a financial advisor, and I'm a certified financial educator, and I'm a fitness instructor. So I do this whole big range of things. But so in my design practice, my ideal clients are people that have special needs children or elderly parents that are coming to live with them. I do special needs and aging in place design.
Okay, so what does special needs and aging in place design mean? Do you design the environment where they live?
I design the home. Yeah.
Okay.
The home and the everything that goes in it.
Okay, so if you're talking with, again, you want to create a message, and you can have more than one, because you have an ideal client or customer, but then there could be others on the periphery of that you might be able to serve. So it might be a busy professional that you're talking with who, who could use some good financial planning and things of that nature, right? That's a different message than, if you're speaking to someone who has a special needs child, or even of any age, even, a child or an adult. Even I have a nephew who's 30, and he has Down syndrome, and he's a very close nephew. He's not a emotionally distant nephew at all. We're very close. And so I understand a little about the challenges of having a special needs child and a special needs adult. So if you're speaking to that person, the special needs, the person who has a special needs child or a special needs parent or something like that, speak directly to the emotion of that, okay? And talk about the relief, speak to the relief that you provide for them, okay? So if you think about someone who has a special needs child, what is the number one thing that they're worried about, or that they're troubled about, or that is causing discomfort in their life?
So when I say special needs, that's a cognitive kind of thing. Mine is more physical. So it's children with cerebral palsy, it's wheelchair users, it's people on walkers and things like that. So accessibility, or just being empowered in their home through independence. For most of my families with children that way, it's about empowering the caregiver, because the child can't do much on their own to begin with. It's everything that I do is extremely complicated. So let me throw this at you that might be a little easier to talk to.
No, it's not even easier. Let me say this for just 1 second, okay? Because this is what's important for everyone to understand. Because you're right, what you do offer might be complicated. It might be, but really, what they want is very simple. And so reducing and simplifying the complicated thing that you do into the very simple relief that you provide them in their life is what they respond to, okay? And so if you say, I help those with cerebral palsy, or whatever the term might be for those who have special needs in a mental capacity, okay, whatever term that might be, because it's not always cerebral palsy. I help folks with cerebral palsy live a normal life, so that the cerebral palsy doesn't affect it. I mean, those aren't the words, but you see what I'm saying? I'm not saying things like empowered. That's an overused term. That's a hijacked term that's way overused, and it's very benign. It's like toad. That doesn't mean anything. What means something is, I help your special needs child live a normal life. You could just say that.
So the other way that I used to phrase this, and I'd like your opinion on this, is trying to combine everything that I do into one term, like total wellness. I teach people health, wealth, I teach people nutrition, I teach them everything, but I've always looked at, and this is way overused too, is why I stopped using it, as total wellness being body, mind, spirit, and financial health. Looking at each category. So I've been a struggle for years because I do so many different things, and I don't want to give up one phase of what I do because I love all of it.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I have a question. A question, if I could chime in. Because a light just went off in my head, knowing a little bit about some of the things that Lisa does. Could she talk about it? It pigeonholes a little bit, but could she talk about helping special needs, individuals achieve physical and financial health or independence, physical, because, and I don't know if you ever looked at, Lisa, the other piece that I think people worry about with especially special needs children is how are they going to support themselves when the parents are gone? So, could there be that piece of, I help special needs individuals or families or whatever achieve, physical and financial independence.
Right. And so what to do here, Lisa, is test. It's a good point, Dan. And so what you could do is you could say, I help those with special needs live a normal life and never worry about money.
Which is a fraction of what I do, because I help everybody.
That's okay.
I mean,
That's
so in general, I mean, I serve everybody, not just those with special needs, but that's my expertise in my design practice.
Sure. So it's just so for everybody listening, this is why this is important. You have to have very, very pointed, very direct, very succinct messages for your ideal customer. Now, if you serve a lot of customers, well, which one is ideal? Because now as a business, all right, not all customers are the same. There are some that maybe you prefer to serve above all others because it's just more in your zone, in your genius zone. Maybe it's because you're better equipped to do it. And maybe it's because those are the most profitable ones. So if you were to go into every business I've ever done this for, you go in and you look at all the people who, send them money for whatever it is that they do, there's always the top 20% that produce 80% of the revenue. And there's a bottom 20% that produce 80% of the anguish and frustration. Okay. That bottom 20% is highly suspect. And what I do is I encourage them to give those individuals a soft landing at another place. All right. That's going to free up a tremendous amount of mental, more than anything, mental resources, but also financial resources for you to go out there and serve others in a more powerful way. Now, I'm not saying, Lisa, that's something that is, obvious in your business. I don't know your business, but I would be willing to bet you a Coke there's some truth in that for you as well. Be very careful about serving everyone, because someone a long time ago told me, look, if you serve everyone, you serve no one. I don't know if that's really directly true, but I think there's some wisdom in that too. The main point here, Lisa, and we can work on this outside of this, there's an opportunity to do that, is make sure that your messaging is very pointed toward a very specific profile of customers. And if you need more than one of those, it's okay. But more than about 3, you start to really dilute yourself. Remember, winners focus and losers spray. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for offering that up. Excellent.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
If what we do is more sales oriented, if we're not selling widgets, is there another or something that we can quantify as profitability as far as margins and all that? If it's more of a service, probably more like what Lisa does too. Is there another chart that we plug our numbers into for our goals, and those numbers? Does that make sense?
Tell me about your business. Tell me what you do, Susan.
Oh gosh, and now I was just thinking I desperately need to work on my my tagline or my thing. And I've got nothing. We're in commercial real estate we solely do commercial sales and leasing in the area. And I really need a good tagline and something to share that. And Lisa, even though maybe I right now don't have anything, I really felt like you were really somebody I wanted to keep talking to, because you did have a lot I didn't even know where to start with to ask another follow-up question. But I did really feel that you were genuine and you had a lot to offer. So kudos to you on that. And so that's what we do. Like I said, sales and leasing, and it's not necessarily an item, right? So is there, how might we go about, or is there a different table?
No, there's not a different table at all. This is the fundamentals of the fundamentals of business. Okay. I mean, it really is very, very basic and super important. So Susan, how would you describe your ideal customer or client? If I were talking to your ideal client or customer, Susan, what would they be saying that would tell me I need to introduce them to Susan?
It would be somebody who is contemplating moving, leasing, selling, specifically related just to their business. if they're thinking about it, if they are already actively in the pursuit or whatnot, so that we could help them identify help them prioritize and then identify sites that might be available to them that would save them money and time from having to do all the searching. And honestly, commercial is very different. MLS is a tool that a lot of end users can use, and commercial doesn't have an MLS, and end users don't have even the access to the properties that are out there because we use CoStar and it costs a couple $1,000 a month. And most people in that short period, they're looking for a property, won't invest a couple $1,000 a month, rightfully so. And all the fees are paid, if I'm doing a buyer or tenant rep, then by the other side anyway, just like in residential.
Okay. So your ideal customer is somebody who is moving or expanding their location. They need space, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So some of the things that you just told me, that you just shared with us, are the things that they like to avoid. Okay. Plug some of that into that 3-part framework that I just shared that I shared with you earlier. Okay. So maybe it's, I help business owners in the Hamilton area or in the state of Ohio. Okay. Find their next location, their ideal space. Okay. Without, and then all the painful stuff you talked about that you help them avoid. I help business owners find their ideal office space or manufacturing space or whatever it might be. Again, focus on your ideal customer if that's who you're talking with. So if you're putting messaging together and you're sending it out there, you're doing outreach work, don't send the same message to people who are service companies that don't do any manufacturing. They don't need that kind of space. Don't send it to the same people. You see what I mean? You have slightly modified messages based on the ideal customer or client you're sending it to. Okay. But you help them find their next ideal manufacturing space. Okay. You could even modify that to the most efficient manufacturing space, because they like to think in efficiencies, in terms of efficiency when you're in manufacturing. Okay. Without, and then you plug in 1, 2, or 3 of those painful things that you mentioned earlier. Okay. Because if we think about somebody who is looking for new space, what are they afraid of? What are they concerned about? What makes them just like not enjoy the process? Okay. Those are the things that you want to kind of check off the list. Without that, without that, and without that. Oh, awesome. You help me find my ideal, most efficient manufacturing space without all the nasty stuff that I would love to avoid, like the plague. Then that's different than somebody that just said, well, I'm in commercial leasing. Follow me?
I do. So it'd be like so that I can help them avoid, spending all the time, the frustration, and quite frankly, overspending, because I don't think a lot of people know what fair market rates are. And their biggest fear is that they get taken advantage of, right? If they're, it's kind of like taking my car in because I know nothing about it. A lot of people know a little bit about, they've sold a home at some point, or there's somebody they know has sold or bought a home. So there's a little bit of a comfort level. But commercial, I find that a lot of people really don't, and they don't, have a whole lot of experience with.
Sure. One of the things I would encourage you guys to do is, invest a little time on this and play with it. And what you can do is use those 3 blanks I shared with you and just brainstorm out on sticky notes and put them all in a wall in 3 groups. I help blank. And Lisa, this would be very powerful for you because you have more than one type of customer. Okay. I help blank to blank without blank. Okay. And then what you do is you just brainstorm all of the people that you help, all the things that you help them to do, to accomplish without, and then you brainstorm all of the painful stuff that hurts you because you see people go through it. They make bad decisions and they have to deal with all of this. These folks out there that, waste all of their time showing them things that won't fit, and they know it because they don't have the right properties available, or, whatever the thing might be, all kinds of maybe deposits or who knows what else they have to pay and they're afraid of losing. All kinds of things like that. That's how you differentiate. Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hopefully that was helpful.
Oh, absolutely. Can we hire you? Because it's actually my husband is the broker. My son is on here somewhere. I think he's the sales office. I just told him, I wish he put his video on. Do you come into businesses? Can we hire you to come in and work through this with us or?
Mm-hmm. Well, I can. What I would encourage you to do first of all, is if you can come to the 19th, by all means, come to that. If you want access to the online academy that, the chamber has provided, then send an email to let me share that with you really quickly. Okay. So that you guys know what to do here. Let me see if I have that on here. I think I do. All right, so there's a summary. Oh, free gifts. No, it's not a month, it's a year if you're a member. Now, one of the things I'm doing, if you come to one of the sessions, I'm setting up a group coaching for the Hamilton Chamber members, and that should start a week from tomorrow. That's the target time. Okay. You'll get some potentially you'll get at least some profit sessions in there. If you want access to that, send an email to Joe at your seven-figure business, Joe, no E on the end, so your sevenfigurebusinesscoach.com, and just put Hamilton Chamber in the subject line. Okay. Now, if you want to contact me directly because you have questions, like you just asked, then just replace Joe with Dale at your sevenfigurebusinesscoach.com. If you want access to the online academy, send that email to Joe and just put Hamilton Chamber in the subject line. He'll know what to do there. Okay. All right. Thanks for asking that question. Happy to help. Send me an email to Dale at your sevenfigurebusinesscoach.com and we can go from there. All right.
Thank you.
You got it, Susan. Thank you. All right. Any final questions at all? I enjoyed helping and doing this because I know how impactful it is, and it can, these big doors do swing on small hinges. They really do. So if you take just these things I've shared with you today, and certainly what I shared on October 5th, don't try to boil the ocean, do everything at one time. Just choose one. Start with your messaging. It's very foundational, and it'll make some immediate impact, because when you go out and go to the networking meetings, or you're in line at Kroger and you start a conversation with someone, now you can have a lot of fun with this. And we will talk more about that too on the 19th. There are two kinds of conversations, generally speaking. One is a casual conversation like you would have with a friend, and there's really no outcome that you're concerned about. The other is a leadership conversation where you're in a place where you want to influence this individual in some way, shape, or form. And what I'll share with you on the 19th will not only help you in your business, it'll help you with your relationships in general, because leadership and salesmanship, or salespersonship, or whatever the term should be, if you do them correctly, it's hard to distinguish one from the other. And I'll show you how to do it on the 19th.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
This is some great information, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.
To the chamber and Dale, Dan, and Tiffany. My problem is I don't even want to talk to anybody. It's hard. I know that what I do, I totally believe in it. But when I walk in a room and I'm looking around, the fear of, now, once I know a person like Dan, at least once I know them, I'm okay. But that initial, walking into a room, looking around, looking at everybody else talking, my immediate mindset is, and I know about the service thing, because I wouldn't mind putting on if they're serving food, I wouldn't even mind serving the food. I'd be much more comfortable doing that. And I'd rather do that than have to open my mouth and talk to somebody, a stranger that I don't know, and figure that they're interested in what I have to say. Or you can open your mouth and say the stupidest thing ever. And then after the conversation, you're like, why did I say that? That was so stupid. Or why didn't I ask them this? And so, you know, that's one of the things that I told Dan is I love the networking sessions, but I whether it's, I walk in, I look to see if I find somebody and if that I know, and if they're already talking to somebody, I don't want to interrupt that, or I might like sneak up or ease up. I'm a real introvert, but I'm a preacher. So I like teaching like through the pulpit, but then when it's done, people pull your energy. You know, for me, so that's one of the hardest things, but for what I do with the nonprofit, I gotta do that. So how do you get past the first, I'm scared to death to even talk to anybody in the room, because how do I, so that's my question.
Sure, happy to answer it. I know it's a 9 to 10 meeting, and Dan, I'm happy to hang out
I'm
here.
sorry.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay, Vanessa. I'm gonna answer your question. I just want everybody to know that it's 9 to 10 meeting, and totally, I'm not going to be offended. I doubt if anybody else will. If you have something else you got to go do, but I'm totally happy with hanging out here a bit. This is coffee and conversations after all, right?
If I could just interrupt, Dale, I hate to do this. And Vanessa, I can't believe you have that fear, because you certainly don't show it. She's delightful to talk to. But anyway, I do have another Zoom I have to get on. So Dale, you stay on here and have a conversation, but I'm going to have to log off and get on my other Zoom call.
Okay. All right.
So,
good to see you,
Dan.
Dan.
Everyone.
See you next week.
Bye, Dan.
Well, hopefully he doesn't need this Zoom account.
Hopefully not.
That could be a problem. Tiffany, you're still with us, so I know you're our anchor here, okay? You're a Hamilton Chamber anchor. All right, so Vanessa, what is, help me understand, what from your perspective, what is it that, where's the fear coming from? What are you afraid might happen that would cause you to be so hesitant?
That people don't want to talk to you. There's a few different barriers. If you're not from Hamilton per se, there's this whole Hamiltonian thing that if you're not from Hamilton, people don't like to, they prefer to deal with Hamilton, people that are born and raised in Hamilton. And a lot of the conversations you can start to talk, but they're going to talk to you about things that went on and have always been in Hamilton. So I've been trying to study the history and know more about it. But there's a lot when you go into a room, there's a lot of, you know, people size you up and you're sizing people up. You're trying to figure out who to talk to. But it can be very challenging. And it has been very challenging. And so, Sue, hey, we rent from you. But I think your mom. But it is very challenging. So, you know, we do diapers. We have a diaper bank where we give diapers. We're like 20,000 diapers to babies. We provide clothing for children 0 to 4 that are in need in Hamilton and throughout Butler County. I mean, it's, you know, our market is nonprofit. So we're looking always for individuals that are willing to give, volunteer, that type of thing. But it's just very challenging for me personally. That initial conversation. Once I get to know somebody, I'm okay. Once I've met them, I'm okay. But that initial walking in is very hard for me.
Sure. Yeah. So what is at play here? What is at work here? Is something we all have, which is our ego. Okay.
Okay.
Now, when we think about ego, most of us tend to think of someone who is maybe self-centered, narcissistic, and rude. Okay. Because they have a big ego, right? I mean, got to have the fastest car. They got to have, you know, whatever. That's true. That's part of how ego shows up and manifests itself in life. But the other part is the ego is also afraid to be hurt and rejected. That's also your ego. And so one of the things that I've learned to do, that doesn't mean that I don't kind of go back there. It just means that I've learned to sort of overcome it. It's like having a habit that doesn't serve you well. You don't get rid of that habit. That habit's always there. That circuitry is always there. You just install new circuitry that is now your default circuitry, and you can direct that, okay? And so what I do is I realize when I walk into a room and I'm feeling maybe a little bit intimidated, and I start to go back to that place, which is my default wallflower position, all right? I realize that fear that my ego has, that ego isn't me, by the way, nor is your ego you. You know, we have this interesting ability as humans called autocognition or metacognition. In other words, we can think about what we're thinking about. And so we're very multifaceted creatures. We're very fascinating, very interesting. Just think about it this way. The ego is not the real Vanessa, okay? That's not the real Vanessa. The real Vanessa wants to serve. And the real Vanessa realizes that, look, if I allow my ego, this thing that's afraid to be hurt, to keep me from reaching out to people and saying hello and asking a question that's totally focused on them, which makes it a lot easier, okay? Especially because you're a pastor and a preacher, that by nature, you're a servant, okay? And so when you kind of tell your ego to close its pie hole and sit down in the corner and be quiet while you go work this room, what you're really saying is, I cannot allow you to rob me and the people in here of the blessing that I have in store for them because you're afraid of what they're going to say or do. And so then you step out there, you put that person in a corner, you visualize this happening, okay? You put that person in a corner, have them sit over there on a stool and behave themselves while you go out, and then you release the blessing that you have, that all of these people, that many of these people in this room deserve, okay? And that you have in store for them. And if you allow your ego to run the show, then you're allowing your ego to rob many, many people of a blessing they would otherwise have, okay? And so picture yourself putting that ego in a corner like it's a little, you know, spoiled child, and telling it to hush up until you get finished and you'll go home together, because you can't ever leave this ego, okay? Then when you go out there and chat with and say something to someone, make sure that it's a service related question, because that is what you emanate. You emanate that. I can tell by the way you talk. I can tell on Zoom that you're a servant person, you're a server, okay? Then all you do is just say, excuse me, my name's Vanessa. I see you're Bob. Is that right, Bob? Yep. Bob, I'm working to connect as many people here today as I possibly can with others that they may be able to serve and who may be able to serve them. Can I ask you a question? Sure. You're always going to get a positive answer to that question. They're not going to say, no, go pound sand. I don't want to talk to you. They're there at a networking meeting. They're there to meet people, and you're already offering to facilitate that. So Bob, I'm just curious, if I were talking to your ideal customer, what would they be saying that would tell me that I need to bring them over here and introduce you to them right away? Vanessa, they are going to, if not physically, they are going to, with their eyes and energy, embrace you and hug you like you're their best friend, because they probably don't like networking either. More than likely. Not that many people do, even though they say they do. Is that helpful?
Yeah, because it's taking it off of me and looking at how I can help somebody else.
Yeah, don't worry about you. There's no chance, there's almost no chance that somebody's going to give you a negative response to what you're doing.
Okay.
And what you're saying. Almost no chance.
Thank you.
And what you're doing is you're teeing up the natural inclination of, for most human beings at least, save a few who are, you know, not like the majority, I suppose. Most people want to reciprocate. if you do something for them, they want to return the favor by normal and natural wiring. Okay.
Mhm. Thank you. That helps
Yeah.
tremendously. Thank
Yeah.
you.
This is about to turn really fun for you. It's about to
Thank
become
you.
really fun for you.
That just totally changed my perspective. So thank you. I'm
Okay.
glad I pressed.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, we have time for one more, and then I have to take a break, take my little laptop alarm system for a walk, and get ready for 10:30. So we have time for one more question. I'm really enjoying this the conversation with you guys, even though I've already had my coffee.
Well, they
Thank you,
seem like
Susan.
they're being awful quiet now, Dale.
Yeah. Maybe I've talked out.
That's okay. So everybody, we talked about the October 19th event. I added some of that info to register in the chat box. So it's at hamilton-ohio.com. And that is our workshop for that day. So definitely check out, let me find the name of it. That is titled How to Convert a Lead to a Sale Without Being Salesy. So even that's not compilation of what actually is going to be talked about that day. We've got many, many good topics throughout that workshop. So, and Dale, I think I want to talk to you about a couple ideas I've got for that day too. So, and those are just like 1 hour. So we're planning on that in person at the chamber. So jump on and register for that. Dale, thank you so much for taking some time with us today. This is a very exciting topic. I think everyone could take away something little, whether you are an introvert or that extroverted networker. It's always good information, and I think everybody will probably commiserate that you all have learned at least a few things today for sure. And then we will be back for coffee and conversation in 2 weeks. So that's October 26th at 9 a.m. We will see you all back here then. So thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Bye now.